So if you're a physician in the world of regenerative medicine, you're standing at a pretty critical crossroads. And the choice you make, well, it doesn't just affect your patients. It can literally define your entire career. Today, we're going to break down the two very different paths for regenerative biologics. We'll explore why one is the absolute gold standard and the other is a legal minefield. Let's dive right in.
It really boils down to this one simple question. In your practice, are you choosing a Rolex? Or are you choosing a counterfeit? Now, I know that sounds a little dramatic, but honestly, the analogy is perfect. One represents precision, real investment, and total legal backing. The other, well, it might look the part, but it is carrying some immense hidden risks.
So let's lay it all out. These are your two choices on the table. On one side, you've got the gold standard. We're talking FDA-approved, totally legally defensible, and clinically verified products. And on the other side, a legal minefield. Unapproved, high-risk, and completely non-compliant biologics. The contrast? Well, it couldn't be more stark. It's night and day, really.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this choice, we've got to talk about the FDA's regulatory framework. This is the rule book that governs these products here in the U.S. There are two key sections of the Public Health Service Act that are right at the center of this whole conversation.
First up, we have Section 351A. Think of this as the major leagues. Products that fall into this section are classified as biologic drugs by the FDA. That means they are held to the absolute highest standard, requiring full current good manufacturing practice, that's cGMP. And crucially, they have to be registered through something called a Drug Master File, or a DMF, with the FDA. This is the official, transparent, legally sound pathway.
And then there's Section 361. Now, this is where things get tricky, because this designation is so often misunderstood, and frankly, it's misused. It is only supposed to apply to minimally manipulated human tissue that's used for its original function. Think skin grafts, maybe a corneal transplant. It was never, ever intended to cover systemically administered biologics, like exosomes or other derivatives used for regenerative therapies.
All right, let's go back to our Rolex versus the counterfeit analogy, because this is where the difference becomes crystal clear. We're going to look at what a compliant 351A biopharmaceutical company actually looks like versus the typical labs that are kind of operating under the guise of Section 361.
Okay, this slide just lays it all out, plain and simple. Just look at FDA registration. A compliant 351A company, they have a public drug master file, full transparency. The typical 361 lab, nothing, zip. For manufacturing, you have cGMP certified facilities versus labs with basically zero oversight. That difference alone is massive. And scientific backing, it's the difference between formal university partnerships and just, unverified marketing claims. In the end, the legal status says it all. One is lawful, the other is not.
And if you think that's a big difference, just look at the business models behind them. It's just staggering. On one hand, you have a real biopharmaceutical company. Valuations can top $1 billion, with more than a decade of serious R&D and a portfolio of issued patents. And on the other hand, a typical tissue lab might have a liquidation value of, $100,000, with hardly any real IP, relying on marketing gimmicks instead of actual science.
Okay, so let's really dig into why we're calling this a minefield, because that's exactly what it is. We need to unpack the severe risks that come with choosing these unapproved, non-compliant 361 products. This isn't just about some regulatory paperwork. We're talking about real-world consequences for you and your practice.
So what really happens? What are the actual consequences for you in your practice? Look, while these products are often marketed as a simpler, cheaper option, the reality is this. When a physician uses a product marketed under Section 361 for something it was never approved for, like an IV infusion, you aren't just bending the rules, you are flat out breaking federal law.
And what that means is you're often getting tangled up in multiple federal violations, all at once. You've got the misbranding of unapproved drugs, you've got the interstate shipment of these biologics, which, and this is a big one, is a federal felony, and you have the issue of making false medical claims, which the FDA and the Department of Justice are actively going after right now. And the fallout for you, the physician, it's brutal. We're talking about massive civil fines, the revocation of your professional license, and even criminal prosecution. And yes, in cases where they find willful violations, imprisonment is a very real possibility. This is a career-ending kind of risk.
And listen, this is not some what-if scenario. This is happening right now. The FDA and the Department of Justice have already issued injunctions, criminal charges, and yes,
multi-million-dollar penalties to these unregistered labs and the clinicians who use their products. They are actively enforcing these laws.
Okay, enough of the scary stuff. Let's talk about the solution. Let's pivot from the problem and look inside a compliant Section 351A operation to understand what that gold standard of safety and legitimacy actually looks like. This is the path of professional protection.
A truly compliant operation is all built on this rock-solid foundation of quality control. It starts with accountable, made-in-America sourcing. From there, manufacturing happens in cGMP and ISO 5 certified cleanrooms. Then, every single batch has to undergo mandatory third-party testing for purity and potency, and it all culminates in that critical FDA Drug Master File registration, which ensures total traceability.
But it goes even deeper than that process. We're talking about these key pillars of trust. Full vertical ownership of the manufacturing chain, that eliminates gray market risks. Being based right here in the US means you've got full federal oversight. Partnerships with major research institutions, that provides real scientific validation. And committing huge amounts of capital, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, to clinical research, that shows a real dedication to evidence, not just marketing.
So, let's bring this all together. What does this all mean for you? Ultimately, this is about your professional shield. Understanding this distinction is, without a doubt, your best defense in this rapidly evolving field.
I really want to pause on this quote for a moment because it says it all. Compliance is not just paperwork, it's your professional shield. This just perfectly captures the core message. Following the FDA's 351A pathway isn't about navigating red tape, it's about actively protecting yourself, your practice, and your patients from legal, financial, and professional harm.
So here's the bottom line. Choosing Section 351A Biologics isn't just the better path, it is the only lawful path forward. It's the decision that protects your medical license, it ensures the safety of your patients, and it preserves that professional reputation you've worked so hard to build.
And that just brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? With the stakes this high, we're talking your license, your freedom, your patient's well-being. Why on earth would anyone gamble with a counterfeit when you can operate with the gold standard?